Welcome to the very first edition of the Garden Angels of Justice and Peace with one of your hosts, Pearl Polto from Philadelphia.
And Josie Brandon from Arizona.
Josie, this shows, and let me tell the people out there, and I'm going to bring it right back to you, these shows are going to be, we're trying to put some focus on love, education, and helping the people find a better life. And all the fields out there, we're on Skype tonight, as you see, and in a few weeks, Josie will be live right here in the Philadelphia area for months. But the thing is, we're trying to get to you, the people. Josie, what do you have to say to the people as well?
Well, absolutely. We're about keeping love in the house. When I say love in the house, that means in your spirit as well in your home. So we're going to be bringing them some hot topics. We're going to be talking about a lot of great things that are going to inspire their souls. And we're going to talk about difficult things as well, because when we can talk about difficult things, we can actually experience growth. So I think the viewers are going to have a great opportunity just to be inspired and to get them to think, and hopefully to make some better choices for their world.
Well, everybody's been emailing me and everybody's been contacting me on the first topic, and everybody says, you know, they can't wait to hear Josie and Pearl again. So what is the topic tonight?
Well, today we're going to talk about infidelity, affairs, why they happen, and we're going to talk about what happens if you're in a situation like that, as well as why people stay in those kinds of relationships and why people move on. So we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of affairs and infidelity.
Now, you know, people don't want to hear this. The husbands and the wives don't want to hear about the infidelity. You know this now, but do we care?
Well, we do care about them, but sometimes we got to talk about, like as I mentioned, you know, great leaders talk about difficult things, and this is a difficult subject for a lot of people, but it's also one of the reasons why divorces occur in America and around the world. So I think if we can talk about it and really get down to some of the core issues, we can help some marriages to heal and some people to move forward with their lives.
Okay, you talk about infidelity now. Let's go to day one. Here we have a couple. I'm not sure if you're talking about a first marriage or second marriage. Let's go to the first marriage. Everybody goes for love for the rest of their life, and they're married for years. And what happens? What happens after that? Do they get bored? They get tired of one another? Did the love go out the window? What happens?
Well, you know, there's a lot of different reasons, and probably what to start off with is that they're saying that 53% of marriages actually end up with infidelity. End up with divorce. And out of that percentage, 57% of the men say that they actually had infidelity during the marriage, and 54% of those marriages say they had infidelity. So I think what happens is there's a lot of core issues, and at first they have different cycles by which these infidelity situations occur. One of them is in the first year of marriage, actually. What they show is that during the first year of marriage, that's really when it's the most undetectable, is because the two people are united for the very first time, and oftentimes if they're just coming together, there's a little bit of strife, you know, like arguments or things between the two couples, and sometimes one of them will engage in an affair outside the marriage.
But wait a minute, stop. So but what you're saying is against the tradition. People were supposed to be getting married out of the word love.
That's correct.
So if you're getting married out of the word love, where's the communication? Isn't that the problem? Is the communication and not maybe there was no love there? It's more the communication?
Well, that's really what we're going to get down to, is the core issues, because infidelity in itself is really an unmet need or a desire that someone is either not getting within the marriage or within themselves. So yes, it really gets down to if you truly love somebody, you're not going to engage in that kind of a situation. But there are situations that occur as to why these things happen in the relationship. Another one that I was very surprised to learn about is when a couple first has their first child. Oftentimes what happens is the dynamics between the two people changes, and you know, either the mother or the wife focuses more on the baby and the stress and the fatigue and the changes and things of that nature hormonally, and I was really surprised to find out that when you actually have your first child, sometimes that can occur. And again, this information is based on studies with universities, studies with therapists, marriage therapists, psychologists from
Oh, wait
around
a
the
minute. Let's get
world.
personal. Let's get personal. You're going through the
Yeah,
textbooks. You're going to the textbooks. What you're saying is, and it's personal. I mean, it's personal. I'm sure it happened to you. It happened to me, and it's happened to a million others. You're right. Okay, two people get married. They have their first child, and the husband, actually, it's the husband. He gets jealous. He gets jealous because you have a kid,
yes,
and the jealousy is because you're not giving him the attention. Am
that
I
is
right?
correct. Yes, yeah.
So you don't need a textbook to find that out.
Well, yes, you're right. You know, when we're talking about it, it's easy to talk about it, but when you're actually in a relationship and you're going through the process, you're not thinking about all these things. You know, you're just focusing on the new baby or the baby things, and you know, planning for the baby, or you know, your new work schedule and things of that nature. And so what happens is the dynamics between husband and wife somewhat changes because their focus initially was on each other, and now their focus is on the baby. And sometimes, and it's, you know, men or women, we're saying that it can go both ways in terms of where the infidelity can occur. It can go both towards men, or, I mean, a man can do it and a woman. Men and women do it actually for different reasons. And what I found out was men will often do it for sexual reasons, while women will actually do it for emotional reasons. So I mean, it really goes down to unmet needs within a marriage.
So why can't they communicate before the marriage or during the marriage to say, I have a problem here? I can't say, what you're saying is the husband or the wife is actually, they cannot say to their spouse, I'm jealous of this kid.
Well,
Because they're not supposed to be jealous of your own kid, but they're afraid to tell their spouse, I'm jealous of your own kid.
exactly. Well, I think that's what we're trying to do, especially with this program today, is we're trying to have open communication between two couples to reduce the amount of infidelities that occur in a marriage. So yes, definitely, there should be open communication, and we're going to talk about that, how you can approach your spouse and talk about certain things. And some of the things that I found out also during the course of marriage is things you probably should keep to yourself, and maybe not communicate, so because sometimes it can cause other issues within a relationship.
So what we should do at some time is even to play act at times, because the husband and wife is sitting there, they're watching, and they're saying, they're talking about us right now because I am jealous. I am jealous of our own kid, and I shouldn't be. I feel guilty about it. What you're saying is we have to let them know it's open, it's okay enough to talk to the spouse to say, hey, you know what? These are the feelings that I'm having.
Definitely, definitely. The communication absolutely has to be there. I think what happens is, I mean, how many women do you know that will say, you know, they don't feel good about themselves. They don't like the way their body looks after having a baby, and it just affects the way the whole relationship is in the bedroom. And so, I mean, there's a lot of dynamics there. So you need to talk about it. And there's certain circumstances that these psychologists and these therapists have all said that you need to actually focus on yourself to get your self-esteem back up, so that you can go back into the relationship on a more positive level versus being more distant and feeling reserved about being close with your partner.
Well, wait a minute. Whatever happened to the old saying is love is in the eyes of the beholder? I mean, what you're saying is, you're right. I understand what you're saying. You know, the woman, an example, you know, she puts weight on and everything else, and the husband, and she's trying to please the husband. But whatever happened to love is in the eyes of the beholder? I mean, isn't that what marriage is supposed to be? Love is in the eyes, no matter what they look like, what they say, what they wear, whatever. I mean, you love them for them. Am I right? I mean, this is what I believe.
Absolutely, I do agree with you. At the same time, I really believe that, you know, there's relationships out there when you get married, and all of a sudden maybe that person's not paying attention to some of the things that they were paying attention to before they got married. And those are all dynamics that keep a relationship exciting, or keep a relationship feeling attracted to each other. So yes, I'm a firm believer through thick and thin, you know, the relationship, you love each other. But I am also a firm believer that you need to take an opportunity, the responsibility of trying to always look good for your spouse, or doing things that are going to be beneficial to your spirit, so that you're going to always feel good about talking to your spouse about anything that's on your mind or that's in your heart.
What about the spouse? What about the spouse? And especially, I'm going to put this towards the men out there. What about the spouse that says, I want my wife to be overweight, 300 pounds, because no one else will be attracted to her?
Wow,
And then at the same time, he goes out cheating. because he already knows he's got his wife secured there. What about that?
Well, obviously, that's pretty much an unhealthy relationship, because anybody who's looking to, isolate their significant other, and obviously being that overweight, it's an unhealthy thing for the individual themselves. And if your only desire for them to be overweight is so that they're unattractive to other people, I mean, that's obviously a very unhealthy relationship to be in. And you would have to really take a closer look about, who your partner is, and whether that partner is a healthy partner for you.
Well, then obviously we're going right back to the start then. People are marrying for wrong reasons.
Yes, definitely.
And if they're married for wrong reasons, divorce rate, it goes up higher and higher.
Yes, yes.
And if you're married for wrong reasons, they're going to cheat faster.
Yes, yes. Well, it comes down to self-esteem and what you're willing to accept inside the relationship before you get married. So, I mean, a lot of times what happens is we make excuses for ourselves, and we don't allow ourselves to see the red flags that oftentimes people talk about. And so you're all automatically allowing people to come into your life that you already see the red flags for, and you're minimizing what they are, when really your soul is telling you something else, those warning signs that sometimes people are not willing to admit to themselves. So yes, they're getting into marriages, and that's a whole another topic in itself. But yes, that's why a lot of these marriages, these divorces that are occurring, is because somewhere along the line there's been a violation of spirit, either for one or the other. So definitely.
What do you did some research on this? So what is the facts of it? Is it the man or the woman that goes to infidelity first, and for what reason?
Well, the studies themselves that we have from the universities and from the psychologists and the therapists around the country don't say who does it first. What they do say is the percentages of men versus women, the percentages of them doing it with their coworkers, and the percentages that happen during their business trips. They're saying that men and women both admit, 36% of men and women both admit that they have had an affair with a coworker. And that statistic is still the same with business trips. So this is not about who's worse or who's better. The bottom line, infidelity is wrong, and infidelity is something that's going to affect the relationship. And so that's really where the focus is, and what it does to the actual deterioration of the marriage in itself once the information has been discovered about the spouse having an affair.
All right, then why does, especially the woman, why does a woman, when they find out their husband cheated, why do they stay in the relationship? And they shouldn't now. I believe they shouldn't. It's my personal opinion. But why do they stay in the relationship? Because then the low self-esteem is there. They don't think so highly of themselves, and yet they stay there. What's the reason?
Well, that's really a loaded question, because there's a lot of different reasons why people stay in a relationship, both male and female. One of them, obviously, is maybe their upbringing, their spiritual upbringing, their background, and their religious background. They might have a belief system that they have where they stay together during the marriage, regardless of whether there's an infidelity or not. There are some people that actually would believe that. There's also other issues of, yes, low self-esteem, blaming themselves for the relationship not being able to work itself out, and him or her going outside the marriage. And also there's manipulation. There's a lot of manipulation that goes around when people are having an affair, and they'll manipulate the other partner to make it look like it's their fault, or they're not giving them something that they need, and so that other partner feels as if they have failed at something, and they'll stay in the relationship because they just feel that they've been so minimized. Now, in some cases, there may have been some issues that led to the infidelity that we found out that these statistics are showing us. There may have been some issues where, husbands or wives were not being attended to. Maybe they were not giving love or attention, or not coming home and doing all these different things, and ultimately it resulted in the other person feeling lonely, or feeling like there was an unmet need, and that's really what caused a lot of this infidelity. So again, going back down to what our show is about, we're talking about bringing love back into the house and having difficult conversations to heal people and to get them to face whatever it is going on in their lives, and to obviously grow from that experience.
Well, let's go back further now. Now, people, when they get married, before you get married, and you just brought out some really good points. But when you get married, half of them are saying, hey, you're just like your mother. Hey, you're just like your father. Well, that stems back to growing up as well. So they're going to imitate their parents in marriage, and this is part of the divorce, because they are their fathers, they are their mothers, and they're being constructive and they're being abusive before they're even getting married. I mean, this is just a viewpoint that I have, that somebody's sitting there and somebody is yelling at somebody else and saying, you're just like your father. How many times have we heard that?
You know, and that really, really is a great point, because of the fact that a lot of times you do have to look at where they're coming from, what their value systems are, what their beliefs are. A lot of times that can be adopted by their parents. You know, if you had a father or a mother who was always having an affair, and you know, you were raised with knowing that, and it was accepted, the likelihood of someone doing that, getting married themselves and doing that, well, they believe it's a normal thing, so therefore they may go ahead and engage in that kind of behavior. So you definitely need to know more about the person that you're involved with, know about their belief systems, know about, you know, what they feel about infidelity, if their parents experience it. It's kind of one of those touchy subjects, but it's a subject that's important in realizing who you're about to spend a lifetime with in marriage.
I think people marry for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they marry for different reasons than love. Because as you were talking, like, I'm thinking of, here's a child, and it just goes, the cycle just goes on and on. There's a guy that the woman says, you're just like your father, and then they have a child, and the child watches the behavior, and he doesn't understand what the word love is, so he's going to cheat as well. So it just goes on the cycle. But the cycle, I think, has to stop. And this is up to us to let the people sit there in their households to say, we're talking about them. It's not saying that they need help, but maybe they do, and they're in the dark. I think they're in denial. They don't want to face the fact that we are talking about them. And some people don't want to hear it. I believe a lot of people don't want to hear it, but once they're focused and they're saying, hey, this is a destructive marriage, I shouldn't even be here, and yet they're still there. I think it's up to us to make them aware of it. They may not want to hear it, you know, but maybe if they hear it from us, you know, another door has to open. They're either going to get help, get closer, more communication, or part.
Exactly. And then, you know, Pearl, we're doing more studies on this, working with all these psychologists and these marital therapists, and what they're finding is that there's other areas, there's other parts of when infidelity does occur. They call this the 7-year itch. When they call it 7 years, 5 to 7 years, is oftentimes when couples are kind of used to each other by now. All that excitement or passion from the first initial years of marriage have kind of come into the routine. And so they're finding that infidelity can occur within that time period. And of course, you've heard of the midlife crisis, where people are going through changes too in terms of being bored or wanting some type of change in their life. So it really comes down to the spirit not being satisfied, and so they're looking for some type of release somewhere else. And what people don't realize, that most affairs only last 2 years. So the question someone would want to ask themselves is, are they willing to destroy a lifetime of building something with someone for a mere, 2 years of whatever they want to call it? I mean, there's a lot of scenarios here. I've been interviews with a lot of men and women, as there are a lot of people out there that are very regretful that they actually engaged in that and they hurt their spouse, and it really opened up their eyes to how their whole world was changed, and it wasn't always for the better initially at all.
I still say, if two people are in love and they're married for a lifetime, I believe, through my findings, through me personally, I believe that love it's supposed to. It's not that it is out there, but it's supposed to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So each year gets stronger, where you actually fall in love all over again with the same person. They say, what's the meaning of the word love? The meaning of the word love with your spouse is falling in love all over again for the first time.
I
Many
would absolutely.
many people aren't agreeing with it that are married because you just said, you brought up some good points. They're sitting home, they don't know what to do. They find some relief on the outside because they're bored with one another. Well, you can't get bored with one another if you're in love with somebody. So what you do is, it should be getting stronger, and it's not. So that's your key right there, by saying, why did I marry this person? And if I'm bored now and this is supposed to be getting stronger, I don't feel this way anymore. So maybe it's the wrong reasons why people, it goes back, why they're getting married.
Exactly. It goes right down to the core issue is, are we rushing into marriage to just get married? Are we actually taking enough time to really discover who are the person that we're deciding to spend a lifetime with? Do we know enough about them and enough about their beliefs, their upbringing, their desire for their goals, their dreams, what they feel about having an extramarital affair, all these different things. Do we really know enough about them before we get married? I think that's probably the biggest question on the table. Are people rushing to get married? Because when the statistics are showing that there's so much divorce out there, we have to go back to what I call the roots of the problem. And there's a lot of issues that deal with the root, but one of them is, are we just rushing into marriage? And number two, do we know enough about ourselves before we should really engage in getting married and and having children and then going beyond that and building a whole life together, only to find out that somewhere along the line we're not satisfied because we believe something was not fulfilled for ourselves or with our partner.
Well, what's that? That's the next question we have to ask the people out there is, and you just actually presented another question, and that is, how long should a person know another person before they get married? Or will they never know the person until the person is so secured in the marriage, and that's when everything falls apart because they're saying, well, I didn't see this in you, I didn't see that in you. So how long does a person have to be with another person before they tie the knot?
Well, that is a great question. I think that really is based upon the type of communication that I think two people have between each other. And, we're working on things like that as well through the Guardian Angels of Justice and Peace to talk about that. I mean, I think there always has to be some level of spontaneity. There's got to be some level of excitement of learning and growing with your partner. But there are some core fundamental things that I think you do need to look for in a relationship before you get married. And so those questions that you need to talk about are things that are probably going to make you a little uncomfortable, but I would rather be uncomfortable before you get married than afterwards, only to find something out that's going to potentially devastate you.
It's actually, yeah, when you said the Guardian Angels of Peace, actually that's what you're trying to do, to show the couples out there. I'm hoping maybe we can put a dent and not just the people. Okay, let's go to another point. Let's go to the people that are married for the second time around. Does this make they don't like their husbands or their wives because they cheated, and yet they're saying, well, I want to be with somebody, so let's get married again. And now they don't know that person either, and that person has already cheated on the first wife. So is the link going to continue through the years of every time? They may be married 3 or 4 times by this is done because the last partner didn't know the infidelity, and they're blaming it on the spouse, and then they go into the second marriage, and the second marriage is they're cheating all over again. They're saying, well, why didn't I know this?
Absolutely, that is such a great point. And I think, the thing is that, I'm an optimistic by nature. That's how I was designed to be. But I think what the thing is that, going into the second relationship, I think the biggest challenge that a lot of people have is being alone. Because when you're alone, you get to think about a lot of things. You actually have to deal with your own self-discovery. And for a lot of people, that can be uncomfortable. But what people don't realize is it's in that point of growing when you're getting to that point of having to ask yourself a lot of questions and being alone, and that you actually continue to grow. Because when you're looking for someone else to fill a void for you, and you haven't really grown with whatever happened in the previous relationship, you are setting yourself up for potential disaster with the next relationship. And of course, also, you're absolutely right. Sometimes we don't know enough about the other person that the second marriage, and they tell you one story, and then you find out that there's a whole nother story that you don't know about. And that's just one of those things that can happen. But again, it goes down to the core issue. Are we rushing into marriage? And should we take more time to really know and love the person before we get married, before we engage in spending a lifetime? Because obviously getting married is not just spiritual, it's legal. And so there's a whole new level of dynamics that are involved after marriage and what happens after that.
Good point. Good point you just brought up. Good point. Because how many people out there say, well, I didn't know about this, I didn't know about that until I married the person. And after I married the person, they turned into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And
Absolutely.
I've
heard of marriage. Yes, and some of the statistics that we found out too is that once people do get married, the dynamics between the husband and wife change, that sometimes the person becomes more controlling. And so, that wasn't anticipated as well during the marriage. So again, it goes down to, are we rushing into marriage, and are we taking enough time to really get to know our partner? And maybe for some people they did take a lot of time, and these things did occur anyway. And these are then, so we have to go down to our spiritual beliefs and what we believe about life and what we believe people are destined for and things of that nature, because that might change their outcome of how they're going to change the marriage around or how they're going to change themselves.
But you just said something though. If they're going into marriage for the wrong reasons, then you just said the key word. You said they go in for it because they're lonely. So how many people, especially a woman out there, and I'm a woman, but how many people out there marry because they're lonely and they think they're going to fill the void, but they're really not filling the void? Have you ever heard the old saying, you can go in a whole party and you're still by yourself?
Yes. I think probably the biggest thing that I would want to teach someone or share with somebody is, instead of seeing yourself as being lonely, seeing yourself as evolving. Because I think when you can be happy with yourself,
yes,
and you're okay in that space of being alone, you are going to be more aware of who you are, and then you're also going to be more aware of what you're inviting into your life. So being lonely is not a bad thing. It might be somewhat, you might feel alone at times, and that's normal, but it's also somewhat healthy to be able to understand what's important to you, because it's in that space, that quiet, gentle space, when you're able to see really who you are and what you're about. And that's when you're actually gaining some self-esteem, because you're growing, you're becoming strong and independent. And then when you're actually in a relationship, you're becoming interdependent with each other. So that's really what I believe, and what these psychologists and these studies are showing us is, when we actually take more time for ourselves in that lonely period, which I call, growing, that's when we're actually going to be able to make some better decisions about ourselves and our partners.
Well, the other key word is bored. When people say they're bored, when people say they're bored and they're bored with their spouse, if they're bored with their spouse before they're married, I'm going to say, and I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, close to it, but if you're bored with your spouse, you're going to be more bored, I feel, after the marriage, because you have to. If you're bored at one time, you're saying, well, this spouse is not for me. He's not filling my needs, or she's not filling my needs. So I'm bored now, but they're not seeing this. They're blocking it all out. They're blocking it out because they could be lonely and they just want to get married, to say everybody's married. So, but I'm bored. Now, when they are married, they're sitting on the couch. They're really bored. So one either cheats and finds somebody that's exciting, but the word is bored as well. So a lot of things you're saying is, if they can pinpoint things before they get married, I think this is our major point. If they can pinpoint things before they get married and know the person without being lonely, without being whatever reason that they have, I think they'll have a solid marriage. The people that live, for old age, to the point of to say, every day I fall in love all over again with my spouse. And that's the way I believe it should be. It should believe everybody out there. And everybody's saying, I hear them saying, well, she's living in a fantasy world. No, it's not a fantasy world. It's what should be out there, because there'd be less divorces. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, my goodness, absolutely. And, we're talking about love, and to me, love is also part of deeply, standing by and being someone's best friend, as well as loving them. And, sometimes you in a relationship, you're not always going to feel good about yourself or your partner, but it's when you hang on to those moments and you communicate, you talk about it, you share, and you're able to evolve from those experiences. I mean, I know relationships, we talk about relationships that fail, but when you focus on the relationships that are working and that are thriving, it's all about how people loved each other through some of those rough times, and how they evolve from those rough times, and they love each other even more for it, because of the fact that they were there through some of those difficult periods of that person, or one or the other going through some of those rougher times, and because of those experiences of sharing that, they actually became more in love with each other because they were able to share in that experience of one or the other growing through something that they were experiencing about themselves or during the marriage. So yes, I mean, number one thing is, are we rushing into marriage? And number two is, I mean, when we finally do commit to that someone, that special someone you want to spend the rest of your life with, there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, there's going to be some rough times, but are you willing to work with that partner and love them to be able to grow through that process and have the relationship evolve to the next level?
I think love conquers all to start off with. I mean, if again, there's unconditional love, there's, and people are saying right now, and I'm sure people are saying, well, Pearl, well, Josie, what makes you guys so experienced? What makes you guys so experienced in giving us advice? What would you say to these people? I know what I would say to them because I'm going to say it after you, but what would you say? I said, I'm going to say it like it is to these people because Josie and I were both married. We're both divorced. We both, we're not, to the point of, but what would you say to those people?
Well, you know what, first of all, the biggest thing I would say is that I've been very blessed all my life that, I think people are already aware that in 2005 I started the national organization called Divorce Support Network, the founder of that, and so I've had the ability of working with leaders across the world on understanding the dynamics of why marriages fail and why they last. I'm also someone who's also grown throughout her life and experienced things personally. So I can completely identify with different aspects of every type of scenario in a relationship. And it's not a matter about being an expert. I think more importantly, it's about being spiritually awakened.
Yes.
I think what happens is in life, you go through certain experiences, you've heard enough stories, you've been educated enough, and you're constantly learning because education never ends, but you're constantly learning. And so all that information has been given to you. And so you become spiritually more aware and spiritually more awakened. And that's really what allows us to be the catalyst of making sure that we're bringing the biggest amount of information to helping not only help people, rebuild hope and direction in their lives, but also rebuild their self-esteem and their sense of knowing that God has not abandoned them, that they have a plan and a purpose. And that's what we want to do with the guardian angels.
We're not here to let the people know. We're not out here in any topic that we do. We're not airing our laundry in our households or in the bedroom scenes to anybody out there. What we're trying to do, as Josie just said, we're trying to make you think, and we're trying to make you actually be aware of what you're doing and what you're not doing, the first marriage, the second marriage. But what would you tell somebody that's watching us right now and is cheating on their spouse? What would you say to them right now as they're sitting there and they're saying, well, I'm one of those people, I am cheating? What would you say to them? What to do, what not to do? We can't tell people what to do. That's obvious. But what would you actually say to them?
Well, Pearl, when it comes to those kinds of questions, the first thing that I would personally say is you need to have a talk with God, because I think when you are having, again, those quiet moments, it's not for you and I to decide, Pearl or Josie to decide, but it's really what you really feel about talking with your Creator, God. Having a quiet conversation with God, in my opinion, is going to open. I believe that once you start addressing that and you are either spiritually torn or if there's something going on inside of you, have a conversation with God, and you'll be amazed about what happens when you have those private conversations. Those answers will be given to you what to do next.
But half of them that are cheating don't want nothing to do with God. I think that's part of the problem. So maybe if we can direct them to God, and maybe they'll find out their answers, because there's a lot of people out there. And it's not just the people that the husbands are cheating, but you have to understand there's something missing. As you said, there's something missing with the husband for him to go to someone else. It's obvious. But it's also bigger. The bigger picture is, here's the poor woman that's sitting home and knowing he's cheating, and sitting home and taking care of the kids or doing what she has to do, and she knows he's out there, and yet she stays for reasons unknown because she's afraid of the outside world. What do you say to the woman? We're both independent women. What do you say to the woman out there that's staying in a marriage because she's afraid to be independent, she's afraid to leave that rejection, she's afraid to leave that abuse, so she stays there with the children or no children to say, I have no place to go, I have to stay here, let them cheat, I have no place to go. What do you say to these women?
Well, again, it goes down to again, I'm always going to talk about God. It's my spiritual, foundation. First of all, have a conversation with God. But I think most importantly is that sometimes fear is an opportunity for us to grow. So, I mean, to stay in a place of fear and to be isolated and feel like you're not growing or dying. A lot of times people say they feel emotionally like they're dying because they're living in a place or experiencing something that's killing them emotionally inside their soul. I mean, when you start to feel that knocking, that's a wake-up call to say you need to talk to someone, you need to get help. And if you are afraid, whatever those fear questions are, like how am I going to do this? How am I going to take care of my kids? Whatever it might be, that might be the next step for you to talk to someone outside, whether it's privately or through some type of resource. There's a lot of organizations out there that will help people in that situation if they have fears of what to do in the situation, if they have no income coming in, or there's a lot of scenarios that take place that would relate to that fear question. That's the time you need to start asking questions. I think the biggest mistake that anybody can do is do nothing, because oftentimes you're just thinking that it's going to go away.
You have to. I'm going to stop you there because I want you to repeat that. That sentence is so important. What's the biggest thing is to do nothing.
That is correct. The biggest mistake is to do nothing, because a lot of times when these feelings occur, it's what I call the spirit knocking at you. It's saying, pay attention. Either something feels uncomfortable, something doesn't feel right. So you can. And when I say don't do nothing, what I'm saying is that start thinking. Even if it's the first thing you're doing is just to start thinking about it, because some people will go numb. Some people don't want to think about it. They pretend that it doesn't exist, and then it really does exist because it affects everything about that relationship.
Let me stop you there. Why would a man? I mean, I don't understand this part. You would. You're expert at this. You teach people already on this subject. But why would a woman not want to know what her husband or vice versa is doing? Why wouldn't they want to know?
Well, the biggest reason is it's too painful to address it. It's too much of a painful situation to look at it. It's denial. It's not wanting to believe something that exists. And it's about being pain. It's about being in fear. And so that's probably the biggest reasons why people don't address it. And one thing I want to mention to you too, Pearl, is that these things occur also. There are a lot of wonderful husbands. They are working, they're doing, they're coming home, they're taking care of their wives, and they're doing wonderful things, and their wives are having affairs. So it goes both ways. Both men and women can engage, obviously, in this type of situation.
I'm not prejudiced or anything, but I would think that the woman, when she goes into a marriage, is wholeheartedly that she believes in marriage, and I agree, because I was one of those women. But the thing is, I would think it was the other way around. I would think, and I'm going to get a lot of hate mail now, but I think the husband would be going out cheating. It's the wife that stays at home, that she wants to make this marriage work. It's the husband that says he's in the office every day. He's got a secretary there. I hear it all the time. It's the wife that's sitting home, and they're all cheering for me now, the woman out there, but they're sitting home. They're sitting home and they're saying, yeah, I'm not one of those women. My husband's out cheating right now, and I know it. So it's not just vice versa. I would say on the odds of the men cheating, I would say the men are up to here when it comes to cheating, and the wife is staying home because she wants the perfect marriage.
I mean, my response would be to that, whether it's a man or a woman, it's wrong. And, I'm not here to say, men do it more, women do it more. The bottom line is don't do it. The bottom line is love your spouse. The bottom line is engage in God. And, stay faithful, because that's really where the love is going to grow, and that's where things are going to happen.
Josie, there's a show out. I think you know it. There's a show out on television, a reality show called Cheaters.
Yes.
So, because of that reality show, why do you think that show came across? Because of what's happening in our country. So, yes, there's a lead way of the husband and the wife cheating, but I mean, this is the infield. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a reality show called The Cheaters. And everybody's watching it because everybody's saying, wonder if they're cheating. But you see, something's wrong with this country. Something's wrong with the people. They don't have enough love, and that's what it comes down to, I believe.
Yes, I would agree with that. But I wish there would be more programming that was better geared towards relationships that do last. There's a lot of people out there that have been married for years. There's a lot of great stories out there, relationships, people married 25 plus years. It's not always easy. It's not perfect. but I would love to be able to see, some more of those kinds of programs. Of course, our society is geared towards the negativity, so we're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of cheaters. And remember what I told you. We talk about this a lot. What you focus on expands. So if you're always focusing on all the negativity and everything else, you're going to get more of it. My goal is if this is about breaking through problems and creating solutions.
So how could we create the first step? Now that we talk all the negativity in a household that couples are facing, what is the first step to pass them through the first door?
Well, you're asking the Josie question. So Josie, my response would be, start having a conversation with God, because God is going to always point you in the right direction.
That's number one. That's number one.
Number one, your spiritual growth is always going to allow you to make better decisions. This is my belief system. And so I would have a conversation with God, and then through that, those conversations, those quiet conversations, start making some better choices for yourself and for your partner. Spending more time doing some of the little things to let that person know you love them, and start making some changes that are going to help the relationship to evolve and grow.
Okay, what can they do? What's a first step to actually, what is the first step to put a husband or wife to say, okay, we need some changes in our household, and they do love one another. We need to make some changes in here. The first step, would you suggest to them to say, do they love one another to continue this? Do they want to fight for their cause, and how would they go about it? What do you suggest there?
You know what? I think this is something that actually came to me. I was thinking about this. Is like, as a family or as a husband and wife situation, we plan for these vacations. We plan for these getaways. And, it's 7 days to get away, experience an island. I would love to see more relationships spend, 3 days, 4 days away where all they do is talk about them. Husbands and wives talking about each other, grabbing your, I know it sounds a little bit corny, but corny can be good. Mm-hmm. Sitting down and writing down on a sheet of paper, not like you're taking a report, but you're saying, I love you. And these are some, maybe have things on the left side that talk about you, what you feel about yourself. And then talk about what you want and what you're searching for, and then the other spouse can do the same thing, and having some dialogue. I think that the thing is that we need to learn how to communicate, more effectively with each other, because there's a great saying: it's not what you say, but it's how you say it.
To me, actions speak louder than words.
So you actions speak louder than words. So that's a great example. So my question to you, Pearl, would be, since actions.
No, I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Well, my question,
if that's my question, I did not do it. Go on. What's your question?
So if actions speak louder than words, then that would be a great first step for any man or woman to say, you know what, baby, I love you, and I want to take 3 days out of our week. I know we were planning on going on this vacation and going sightseeing, but I'm going to say spend 3 days and have us sightsee each other. And let us spend some time together and really rediscover our spirits and what's important to us, what we feel right now and how we can fix things. That's what I would advise any couple, any situation, is to take some time for each other. Instead of planning that vacation, plan 3 days for sightseeing each other.
I'm agreeing with that 100%, because when you talk to couples, if you talk to either one of them, husband or wives, yes, I think, when you're saying you're a vacation, they're getting to know, and you hear it all the time. You hear them say, you know what, I missed the person that I met years ago. I missed the laughter. I missed the crying. I left everything that's there, they don't have anymore. And the reason is you just said it. Everything's falling apart because they're into everything else. And that vacation on a beach, laying on a beach and finding out each other's source, that's where I come up with the saying again, falling in love all over again with your spouse. And that's the meaning of the word, with your spouse, falling in love all over again. So you're never falling out of love. You just have to keep it up over and over again with these little mini trips, whatever. But it's falling in love all over again with the same person. And that to me is the true meaning of a marriage with love.
Absolutely. I mean, and the biggest thing is sometimes we'll have a couple say to me, well, what if we don't have the money to go out and do, a certain type of trip? I mean, then you certainly have, go out to a park and find a bench, find where the ducks are, the birds are, and sit down and just, talk. And again, the thing is talk, not attack. There's a difference between talking and attacking. And, you want to talk with your partner and share what's going on inside of you. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think for couples to just rediscover each other and like I said, plan a mini vacation of each other versus a mini vacation somewhere else around the country. Or plan a mini vacation for each other.
So the first step now, the couples out there, is one. And you know what? We're going to be getting to this show, where maybe one day, and I'm not even going to say maybe, one day, that when you just said a lot of people don't have the money, we will be giving out free giveaways. And that is, you can email us even what's wrong with your marriage and how do you want us to help you with your marriage. I think that's a good idea. What do you think, Josie?
I love the idea, and let's put that definitely out there. Definitely there's mini getaways and things of that nature. But I think the biggest thing that has to happen is there has to be communication. There has to be true dialogue from the heart, conversations from the heart.
Heart and soul. Heart and soul. It has to be from the heart and soul, or it's not going to be there.
You were going to mention number one. Again, number one is to have a conversation with our Creator, with God. That's the number one thing, because when you start having a real conversation with God, you're going to have some good source answers coming to you through your spirit, and that will be the first step. What's
number two? Is number two the trip? Is number two the trip?
Well, number two is going to be that once you start engaging with conversation with God, you're going to have some things come to you. Your spirit's going to be led, and start taking action on some of those things that are engaging. Obviously, I'm saying that if it's obviously in a nature that is inducing love and warmth and some growth. So if you're having, those conversations, and to be bold. Sometimes you got to be bold. Sometimes if you don't like something, or it's hurtful, or it's just wrong, you need to say it's wrong. That's very hurtful. And I think sometimes people have a challenge doing that. But sometimes you need to say that, but then step back and allow your partner to express themselves as well, because there's always two stories to every situation. And if you really love that person, you're going to try to work through it to take it to the next level.
So, in other words, the first thing is talking to God. Now, if God, I always say things are meant to be, and God works in strange ways, and God will make things happen for you. So, if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. If it's not meant to be, well, then you're going to know as well to, go by the guidelines. I think we should have some guidelines here. I think we should have on each show guidelines 1 to 5, what couples should practice. What do you think?
Definitely. And then going back to, the foundation of today's show, which is infidelity and affairs, I think what's really important is people to realize that, if they truly love somebody, maybe they made this horrible mistake in their lives, if they truly love somebody, to start engaging in that conversation with yourself, with your Creator, and with your significant other, and talk about why and what you learned and what you're willing to do to allow this relationship to heal and to grow, or allow yourself to heal and grow.
I get frustrated at times when I talk to a lot of people and they say they're going on separate vacations, and the husband's going one way, the wife's going someplace else, and they enjoy it, and they think this is why, and they say to me, this is what keeps us together. And to me, I don't understand it. That's just not what keeps me together with the spouse, is going on separate directions, but I guess it works for some people. I don't see it. I don't get it. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, every situation's a little bit different. I mean, if it's something they're doing, if they're never taking a vacation with each other, then, that would be something that I think, for me, I would have some questions about. I would have to do some more research on, why couples do what they do with regards to separate trips. Sometimes there are some opportunities when you do need to get away and just allow yourself to grow. However, if that's all you're doing and you're not spending enough time with your spouse, not engaging in a vacation with each other, again, that could be an issue with regards to the relationship having some issues. But every relationship is different. What makes us excited or tick or feel like it's working could be a little bit different to somebody else. I think the question is can you be faithful on a getaway vacation if you're not with your significant other, if you're not with your spouse? Can you still be faithful? That's the question.
Also, at the beginning, first marriages, people are coming out of high school and they're getting married. They think they're madly in love with the person. and they don't understand it, and this is where it leads to what is it, the 3 years? If you're married for 3 years, that's when, it goes the other. What is the age, or what is the time that a person knows or doesn't know when they're in a marriage that they shouldn't be there, or to make it work? I think it's like 3 years.
Well, what the researchers have shown is that there's really, I mean, as far as when people know, what they're finding is the first year is the bliss year, the second year is a little more challenging, and the third year is kind of like the make it or break it situation, because that's when you're starting to engage in more routine behavior between each other. So 3 years is what they're saying, but that's, again, when you're not married and you're dating each other, or you're with each other, let's say you're not living with each other, that's a whole scenario in itself. Then you are living with someone, that's another whole scenario. So it goes, again, to communication. Are we willing to have the courage to say things and ask things of our partners that are going to be uncomfortable? But would you rather be uncomfortable now, or would you rather be uncomfortable later? Ask those difficult questions, because those difficult questions are designed to help you create your destiny.
Wow,
So that's
perfect words. Perfect words, because you are right. Those couples out there that aren't married yet, if you asked your spouse the questions, the hard questions, and then say, how many times have we heard the saying, oh, they'll change after we get married? Or I'll make them change after we get married, and you don't, it gets worse. So, and you think you know the person because you've known them for 20 years, whatever, and then they're comfortable, you're comfortable with them, but then you're saying, I'm really not in love with this person. I'm not in love, so what makes it, I think people should think, because they can save the infidelity, they can save the divorce rate going up, and they can make this a better world for a lot of couples out there if they think twice. So we have to have an agenda where we make people think. I think we are.
exactly, and that's really what our vision is, and our purpose is to get them to think, and then make them let them allow themselves to feel good about their choices and to feel better about their choices. I mean, we're not perfect. We've all have things that we can work on to be better, but it's in those moments of decision that when we're actually confronted with opportunities to make ourselves grow, that really allow us to get excited about life. And as long as we're doing things in a way that doesn't really hurt anybody else that we've already been obligated to love and to share a life with, as long as we're having these conversations and keep communicating, there's always an opportunity to create a better relationship, to keep marriages growing strong, and to prevent infidelity and affairs and things of that nature.
Josie, this is our first show. This is the first show of the Guardian Angels of Justice and Peace, and they watched the shows before to see how this started and what we want to accomplish to everybody out there. If you have a choice, being a host of the show, of what you want to accomplish at the end, what would be your choice?
My decision would just to be God's love made visible. Is to just to love all people, love them through some of the difficult times, and allow them to see their truest potential, and to allow myself to grow in that experience as well, and to just be the best person possible, and just constantly be a source that people can go to and trust, and to know that they're going to be loved.
Well, my phase is this with the Guardian Angels of Justice and Peace, because it can be done, and it will be done, because, we're not just talking, we are the experience. And I would believe that, things can change, and people can change. So if you're sitting there in a household with your husband and wife, and, you're bored or you want to make it work, I would, go to the next step and make it work, because if a person can change and they know the feelings they can change, then, it's a good feeling. If you're in love, and I'm saying in love, when you fall in love with your spouse over and over again, and you're in love with that spouse, you're willing to do anything to make it work. And if you have one stipulation why you don't want to make it work, well, then you're giving yourself some answers too. You're answering your own questions. And I think between Josie and I think these Guardian Angels of Justice and Peace, I'm hoping and I pray to make a dent. What do you think, Josie? Do you think this show, I'm hoping this is only one topic out of many that's going to affect in the households? What do you think?
I know we're going to inspire the world, because I think the greatest thing that we have here is a genuine heart. We have true passion for people, and we have genuine hearts. And I think that's where it starts. And as long as as long as we keep it real and we share information that's going to help inspire people, get them to think and do things that are going to enlighten their world, I think we're always going to be on path. And I know God's going to just continue to allow us to plant some great positive seeds to let people grow and become more positive about themselves and their lives. So yes, absolutely.
Everybody says, and a lot of you has heard these shows before, and if not, go back to them. You know how Josie and I've met, and this was a blessing all by itself. So I believe there was a purpose out there why God put us together, two people from different places of the universe. It's really interesting. So I think this is meant to be. I think this is God's way of saying to the people out there, we need a change. We need a change big time. And the only one that could change big time is Josie and Pearl. and we're doing it. I believe we do it. I feel it. Josie feels it. And we're going to create a lot of love where you feel it. And then say, there's certain things out there that people want, and they want to acknowledge, they want to imitate, they want to be just like. And there's a lot of things that people love about different people, but it's time we get love back into this city, the country. I think it's time we have to make changes. I really pray to God that Josie and I will be a part of this, and I know we are. What do you think, Josie?
My source, which is my spirit, is telling me we're already on path, soul sister. We're doing it. We're doing it.
We are doing it. And when I said I want to be just like them, Josie has one song that's the theme song of the guardian angels of peace and justice. This is the theme song, and you're going to hear this a lot. You will be able to purchase it in the future. Josie will be here in a few weeks, live right here. You're going to see us together on another topic. But the thing right now, Josie, it's so good to have you as a partner.
Pearl, I love you, honey. You're my soul sister, and I can't wait to continue this journey of enlightening people's lives. We're going to do it.
We're going to do it. It's a lifetime. I love you, too. This is Josie's song, and this is the theme song of the Guardian Angels of Justice and Peace. We'll see you next week.
Look at them dancing as they go across the floor. Twisting and turning and yearning for so much more. And every night you'll find them at the bay. Laughing and talking all about yesterday. And I wanna love like that. I wanna love like that. So don't ever tell me that long loves cannot be found. 'Cause when you look for it, you'll find that it's all around. Just look at them gazing as he touches her head. She smiles and tells him that she's so glad that she's there. And I wanna love like all around. So don't ever tell me that long loves cannot be found. 'Cause when you look for it, you'll find that it's all around.
There's nothing more disruptive and annoying than getting an automated call to your cell phone. There are laws against companies using computers or recorded messages to call you on your cell phone without your permission. This is consumer protection attorney Carrie Flitter. You've heard me as a guest on the Polto show. There are consumer laws in place that prohibit many of the unwanted calls to your cell phone. If you're receiving unwanted or unauthorized calls, whether collection, selling products or services, or otherwise, you may be entitled to have these calls stopped and to collect money damages that the law provides. If you're getting unwanted or pre-recorded calls to your cell phone, contact us, the Consumer Protection Lawyers at Flitter Lorenz, at 888-668-1225. That's 888-668-1225, or online at consumerslaw.com. That's consumers with an S, consumerslaw.com. If we accept your case, the bad guys pay our bill.